Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second of our presentations about the new Shul refurbishment project. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lindsay Shaw. I'm the chairman of Chigwell and Hainault Shul, at least for the time being. I'm here to introduce the meeting and to tell you what's going on, and then we'll wrap up and I'll host the questions at the end. The agenda, which we'll show you in a second, consists of me talking first of all, and then a bit from Kevin Green telling us all about the project. Rabbi Rafi's involved in that as well. And then we'll hand over to Colin Franklin, who will tell us about the fundraising for the project. And then Rabbi Davis will wrap up, and then we'll take questions. If you have any questions, please do keep them to the end, and then you can either ask them via Zoom or from the hall, or even ask them on the chat, and we'll go through those and try and answer everything that everybody's got to say. One more thing to say is that we're recording this meeting and we'll put it on the website, either this one or last night's one, in whichever one we've made the fewest mistakes, I guess. So everybody will be able to see it. But if you have any questions, Colin will give you an email address to write to later on, if it's something you thought of afterwards. So let me hand over straight away to Kevin.
So thanks very much for that, Lindsay, and good evening to everybody. Just a quick introduction. My name's Kevin Green. I've been a member of Chigwell and Hainault for over 20 years. I've been a board member, an honorary officer and a chairman. And now I'm talking to you in my role as the joint chair of the refurbishment project. We've really been looking forward to presenting to the whole community and involving the whole community. This is a project that is set up as a community project, both in design and in process. The project design is based on a survey that we sent out to you a little while ago. It's been approved by the United Synagogue, the honorary officers of Chigwell and Hainault, and Chigwell and Hainault's Shul Council. When we had the answers back from the survey, the biggest single thing that members wanted us to do was really knock the building down and start again. But that would have cost a huge amount of money. And we learned from the experiences of other shuls that putting the shul into debt was not something we wanted to do and had gone badly for other shuls. So the refurbishment seemed the way forward. And we focused on the things that the survey had asked us to do, which were primarily look at the cosmetics of the building, the security of the building, and of course, I guess most importantly, the functionality. And I'm going to hand over to Rabbi Rafi just for a second to talk to you a little bit about the functionality.
Thank you, Kevin. Yes, as we know, recently we've started toddlers services and primary school services again, which is great as we've slowly come out of COVID. The problem is, as we know, with the shul as it is, the dividing walls of the shul are not soundproof, so we can't hold children's services down the sides of the shul. It's not ideal having primary school and toddlers both in the hall at the same time because they're competing for space and for noise. And on top of that, we have the Kiddush in there. And we had, just for example, last Shabbat, sit-down Kiddush, hot Kiddush, which was great. But all the tables are set out and the primary school children are shoved or squished into a corner because they don't have their own space. We're also using the boardroom for the toddlers, but the boardroom is tiny and really you can't really fit more than 10 people in there. And we're in this predicament that every week have to decide which group is going into the boardroom, which group is going into the hall based on who's got more numbers. And it's not really, it's not fit for purpose, as we know. On top of that, the teams don't have a space for them and they desperately need a team room. as we said yesterday, that the teens, it's hard enough getting them to come for the year in the lead up to their bar bat mitzvah, and keeping them after the bar bat mitzvah is also very difficult. And if they don't have a space that they can use and feel comfortable with a pool table and chairs and a nice place where they can relax, and not just on Shabbat, but during the week as well, to have programming. They have a room, they have a space, and the rabbis, Rebbitzins, youth directors can go in there and run programming for them is so important. On top of that, we have so many things that we haven't even been able to think about. For example, alternative services that we could be run if there's space for them, which there will be, and discussion groups for women as well. On Shabbat morning, they can go out and have an alternative service or discussion for them. We discuss even a bat mitzvah girl could, during the service, run or do parts of a speech, etc., discussions on the side, and then come back in for the main service. So many options available to us, which we haven't even been able to think about. So on top of providing for the primary school children and for the toddlers appropriately, and the teams which desperately need their own room, there'll be all these options as well to expand the programming and services for the whole community, which is desperately needed. Thank you. Back over to Kevin.
Thank you, Rabbi. Of course, we are focusing quite a lot on the youth because our demographic, thankfully, in Chigwell and Hainault is that we do have a very large number of children and youth. So there is reasonable cause to be confident in the community going forward. Of course, we're not going to forget other sections of the community. So when we look at functionality, security, and overall cosmetics, a lick of paint just isn't going to do it. We're also going to be trying to make the shul more environmentally friendly. And one of the concepts of this project is that we're not focusing primarily on Yom Noraim. I know the survey is from a few years ago, but really the fundamentals haven't changed at all. And of course, the condition of the synagogue hasn't exactly got better over that time. Right, let's see if our technology holds up. I'm going to try and share some slides with you to give you a flavour of what's going on. We're going to start now with a little bit of orientation with the overall site plan. So you should be able to see my cursor moving. And the main change that's happening to the shul is that the entrance to the synagogue on Limes Avenue will no longer be there. Instead, there will be an entrance for pedestrians through the car park. Of course, this automatically means that we're now entering through a secure compound. So security is automatically upgraded. Of course, we're losing a little bit of car parking space, but the car park has always been a bit of a white elephant. It's either not really used 95% of the time, or if it is used, it's simply not big enough. And we will now be entering the synagogue via an entrance here into a link building that links the existing community hall and the existing synagogue. So let's focus in on the buildings a little bit more. And here we have the community hall. Here we have the existing shul. And in the middle here, we have our brand new link building. We've designed this so all the nursery classrooms and facilities are all on one side. There will be a new youth room, which will be built by going out underneath the existing canopy of what was the entrance and into what was the foyer. The general offices will be as is, but refurbed. The toilets will be as is, but refurbed, but there will now be an extra physically handicapped toilet. There will be a new Beit Midrash, a small prayer room down the side of the shul. All of the partitions will be soundproofed. And of course, we're going to be upgrading the kitchen. So let's move on to give you some idea of what this is going to look like. So here we have the lovely new entrance to the synagogue. We've got the synagogue building as pretty much as is on the left and the community hall on the right. There are some outbuildings on the side over here, and between those and the wall of the community hall will be the new sukkah. Let's go inside now, and this will be the bright new foyer. Clearly a massive upgrade on cosmetic appearance and on functionality. No one's going to get wet running from Shul into the community hall for a Kiddush. As you can see, we've got the men's entrance to the synagogue here. Ladies' entrance will be further back, and the entrance to the community hall is over here. A bright, airy, spacious room. We're going to move into the Shul. Please bear with us. The main point in showing this slide is not to show you the detail of the chairs or the decor. It's really to show you the layout of the Shul that we're planning. And that is that it won't be, as it has been, the traditional ladies at the back and men at the front. It will be men and women side by side right the way through the Shul, obviously with the screen. And the ratio of men and women will be pretty much as it has been before, 1/3 ladies, 2/3 men. Ladies' entrance will be at the front here. Men's entrance at the front here. And off to the side over here, you can just about make out the prayer room, the Beit Midrash. Just bear with me a second. There we go. So this is what the Beit Midrash is going to look like. And this is, as Rabbi Rafi said, going to give us the option of being able to do explanatory services, youth services, discussions. It can be used as a lecture room. It can be used for ladies' services. And of course, the weekday minyanim, the weekday services will be held in here. And that should help to keep costs down because we won't have to heat the whole shul. The youth room, as I explained, will be built out under the canopy and back into the foyer and will give really quite a significant amount of space for the youth. But it can also be used as a bridal room, a chill out room, and a meeting room. The community hall will be rebranded as a function room. In this space, we're going to provide full audio visual, so it can be used for lectures, a proper, nice, aesthetically pleasing ceiling with a lighting rig, appropriate flooring and wall decorations, so that it can be used as a function room and be a profit center for the synagogue. Of course, it will still be available for overflow services and for Kiddush. This does mean, of course, that we're going to need to refurb the kitchen to bring it into line for a function room. I'm pleased to say that we have planning consent for all of this. And we also have sign-off from the nursery, the Rabbonim, the office, and the club. And particularly the club will have use of greater functionality from the rooms. It's soon going to be time to look at the detailing of the design. And that's when we're going to need to form a committee from all sections of the community. And we're going to be reaching out to you all to talk to you about that very soon. The cost of the project is 1.2 million. That's based on an initial quantity surveying estimate. We're tendering for our final quantity surveyor now, and we expect to have a much more accurate estimate for the project by the end of November. And we intend to start building early spring. Professional advisors for the project and contractors will all be vetted by the United Synagogue. I'd like to give thanks to Lally Verdi, head of estates at the United Synagogue, David King, our architect, and the building committee for getting us to this stage. So in conclusion, we're not designing this as a bait to filler, a place just for prayer and services. It's a Beit Knesset, a meeting place, yes, for services, but also for social events, educational events, and general learning, and general socializing. It's really, in concept, a centre for Jewish life in Chigwell and Hainault for the future. Thank you for listening, and I'm going to hand back over to Colin.
Thank you all anyway. Also, if we can just switch to the PowerPoint. And so good evening, everyone. I'd like to, we're going to have to scoot on to, otherwise you're going to see all the pictures again. To talk to you about fundraising now. My name is Colin Franklin, for anyone who doesn't know me. I've been a member of the Shul for 7 years since I moved to the area. I'm a member of the Shul Council and co-chair of the project with Kevin. So fundraising, Kevin's already outlined that the current estimate for the project is £1.2 million. So that's the sum that we need to raise. And with guidance from the United Synagogue, when we looked at the fundraising task, and if I can move on to the next slide, just press the button, anyone will do, there you go. We looked at the project in 3 phases. If I can start at the bottom of the slide that hopefully you can see.
Colin, can I just say that the slideshow isn't coming up on the shared Zoom?
Yeah, if we just go into Zoom.
Share that one as well.
Yeah. Share screen. Can you do that and then go back?
You're also too far away from the mic.
Too far away from the mic. Okay, I'll shout a bit louder. So just while we're waiting for the slide to come up, we need to go back one.
That's it.
That's it. Okay, so we designed the program, as I say, in 3 phases. The first phase is the bottom of the chart, was to identify a major benefactor and to use a building analogy to underpin the project. I'm delighted to say that the Sugar family are acting as our major benefactors and have pledged half the 1.2 million, i.e. £600,000 to the project. Now, I guess in true Sugar family style, and Lord Sugar's style, it's not quite straightforward as that. We have to match that amount of money to get the 600,000. So that's our challenge, if you like, that's been laid down by Lord Sugar. And we looked at that challenge and decided again to break that into 2. And the 2 phases that we've looked at are talking to benefactors in our own community, which is the phase we're in right now, and the phase we're going to launch tonight, which is the community fundraise. So if I go on to the benefactors phase, which says it's in progress up there, well, I'm delighted to report we're actually ahead of progress and now have raised just over half the 600,000, i.e. just over £300,000 towards the 1.2 million we need. So we're now at 900,000 in total, which leaves us, for the mathematicians in the room, with another 300,000 to raise, which is what we're kicking off tonight with the community fundraise, which is in detailed planning and mobilisation. And I wanted to give you a bit more insight into what that means and what that's all about. So if we just move on to the next slide. So as I said, we're launching it tonight. It's a campaign based on a technology and an organisation called Charity Extra. Now, some of you will have already been involved in some Charity Extra campaigns where you can donate, and your donations are matched against another funder or another benefactor, so that your money is doubled. Well, there has been some campaigns, I understand, where their money is actually tripled. So, for example, I recently gave some money to Chai, and for every £10 I gave, it registered £20 on the campaign. And that's what will happen with our campaign as well. It's a team-based activity. So there are team leaders who are sort of encouraging people to donate. We'll be reaching out to members of the community, and we'll be carrying out training for those team leaders so they know how to go about that. There's a dedicated web page for each team and an overall web page for the community project. It's targeted for the last weekend in January 2022, i.e. that starts effectively, it will start with an event on the after Shabbos goes out on the 29th, the actual fundraising will start on the Sunday and go through to Monday afternoon. We're also planning other events around that weekend to make it fun and involve the whole community. So we want it to be obviously effective in terms of raising the money, but also fun and something people can get involved in and have a bit of community spirit, if you like. So I've already said this phase is aiming to raise £300,000. We've set up a dedicated email address for anyone who's got any comments, questions, etc. And we really want to hear from everyone on this. So the email address on the screen is refurb@chigshul.org.uk. It's live now, so please feel free to drop us a line with any comments or questions that don't get answered tonight or that you think of as the days and weeks go ahead. And I also want to call out that we've had full support from United Synagogue, expert guidance along the way with fundraising. I'm going to pass over to David Goldberg, who hopefully is online and has stepped out of his other meeting to join us tonight. And I know David wanted to say a few words. So if David's unmuted, I think.
I am unmuted.
Sharon, is that okay?
No, that's fine. Yeah. So over to you, David.
Thank you very much, Colin. As Colin said, my name is David Goldberg. The last couple of years, I've been the director of fundraising strategy at the United Synagogue. And for many of you on this call will know that I am no stranger to Chigwell Shul. I spent 15 wonderful years living in Chigwell as part of my life. And I think probably started my career in the Jewish community in the Shul Hall as a youth leader, while Sandra was down the road doing her thing in Barkingside. And I think Sandra's on the line here tonight. And Sandra, of course, is still carrying on doing her thing brilliantly in Chigwell today. I've worked almost 40 years in the Jewish community, and probably notably to many of the people on the call as a youth worker in Sinclair House. Now, as I said, I'm working part-time for the United Synagogue, and really my job is to help shuls raise the money for mostly capital projects that they are embarking on them. And I've been privileged to work on this project for the last couple of years. We had a dormant time when COVID was on, everything went a bit quiet, but Kevin and I started talking about this probably a couple of years ago now. And I've helped guide some of the structure of the fundraising for this project. And quite frankly, you've done absolutely brilliantly. Obviously, it's amazing that you had this fantastic start with the Sugar family. But I think that the contribution that the people who have been fundraising locally with the benefactors has been really outstanding. And I think working with a few shuls that I am at the moment, just in terms of where you are in the process, you are streets ahead of some of the other shuls that are working. Personally, I have every confidence that with everybody's support, this project financially is eminently doable by everybody. And I just wanted to say a few words tonight, just to say that from my perspective, working with a number of different shuls. When questions come around at the end, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, David. And on behalf of all the project team, I'd like to thank David for all the support and advice he's given us thus far. I'm sure we'll be picking his brains further as we go ahead. So that kind of concludes the bit on fundraising. I'm going to hand over to Rabbi Davis, who's doubling up as one of our technology experts tonight, to give some closing remarks, perhaps. Thank you, Robert.
Good evening, everyone. Some of you may have heard me say the first part of what I'm going to say, but it is worth repetition. So the Talmud relates a story of a man named Choni, who saw someone planting a carob tree, an old man planting a carob tree. And Choni said, "Old man, how long will it take for this tree to bear fruit?" 70 years, came the reply. Choni said, "And how certain are you that you will live long enough to have this fruit? Another 70 years. And the man replied, As my forefathers planted carrot trees for me, so I too plant them for my children. So it apparently takes 70 years for carrot trees to produce fruit. It's now just over 70 years since the formation of the original Hainault Shul community. A handful of members in those days has increased to over 1,400 members today. Membership is at an all-time high. Most of the original members are obviously no longer in this world, but we are enjoying the fruits of their planting. This shul was built, as you know, in 1976, the hall in 1997. This shul was refurbished in 1998. You might recall, some of you will recall, that winter, 98, 99, this building was not in use. We used the hall for all our services, weekday and Shabbos, and we also had porta cabins at the car park for the children's services. So we've been there before, but quite a long time ago. Each one of these projects has enabled our ever-growing community to run varied children and youth activities, in addition to the main service. And we've had amazing social events and huge adult education events over these years with greater flexibility than was the case beforehand. But over recent years, as you know, these premises are no longer fit for purpose. Rabbi Rafi explained why, and those who come on a regular basis will understand that very well. And it's been a frustration of mine over the last few years. So many things we want to do on a Shabbos morning, different things we've just not been able to do. So we want to hold better children's and toddler services and youth programs, but these partitions are not soundproof, they're difficult to move, they aren't attractive, and of course, they also limit the scope of our education seminars. Now, as you are all aware, Nechama and I will be retiring and making Aliyah next July, Bezrat Hashem. But we believe passionately that we are leaving behind a community in a very strong position. Thirsting for more services than our children currently provide. Imagine having a room for quiet reading, another room for discussion, and several others for our youth, children, and toddlers, even while the main services are taking place. Redeveloping our shul premises will also enable new and exciting social events and educational seminars to take place in much more comfortable settings, all of which will further galvanize the community. Above all, these plans send out a strong positive message of huge confidence in the future of our community, both to us and to the wider Jewish community here in the UK. I'm incredibly touched by the generosity of the Sugar family, and I was very moved by what Daniel Sugar said to me in a recent conversation. He said, the shul has always been there for us when we have needed them, and that is why we want to support this campaign. My dear friends, I've also been very touched by the incredible generosity of over 40 of our members whom we have approached to donate to the redevelopment so far. We are already over halfway towards matching the Sugar's generosity. This coming Shabbat, we read of Jacob's dream. He dreamt of a ladder reaching from the ground all the way up to the heavens, with the angels rising and descending, and God himself, so to speak, at the top. Our sages say that these are the angels who helped Jacob get through his difficult life. And Jacob never forgot these angels and referred to them at the very end of his life. The famous song that we often sing, Hamalach hagoel oti mikol ra, the angel that protected me, Yivarech et ha'narim, should bless the children. Now, imagine this image of a ladder representing the campaign for our shul, where every single person who contributes is an angel on that ladder. However much you're able to give, whether in money or time, you will be one of those angels. And your impact on every single person who comes through our Shul doors in the future will be immeasurable. So, ladies and gentlemen, those here and the huge number at home who are watching, join us in this once-a-generation project for our community, and let's make it happen together. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Davis. That's very inspirational. Thank you. You've given us a new slogan, I think. Angels helping us to build the Shul. Thank you. We're going to take questions in a second, but before I do, I just wanted to mention, I'll take my mask off. I just wanted to mention that some of the things that came up last night, in case questions come up again. So first of all, one of the things that I always say is that we are the Chigwell and Hainault family. And we're going to make sure that we don't forget our ancestors. We've actually planning to have somewhere in the Shul a memory room or a memory wall or something like that. The exact plans are not finalized yet. And somebody has already been commissioned to take photos of all the plaques all around the Shul and the hall, which is not an easy job because I'm looking at them just below the louvered windows here. And then we'll use Maurice Osen over Sholom's book that he wrote, the 30-year history book, to make sure we pick up the names of all the people who are involved in starting the Shul, and we'll honour them in that room or on that wall. The second thing is that Kevin mentioned before about the Eco Synagogue. Well, we're not waiting until the new Shul starts. We've actually got the Eco Synagogue group set up under one of our council members called Alan Lyon, and he's progressing that and making sure that we do things more and more in an eco-friendly way. And you might be interested to know that the United Synagogue has a stand at COP26, and the Chigwell and Hainault Shul logo is displayed there. The next thing is to say that we'll be sending out an electronic copy of a brochure that we've produced to all members. And thanks, Andy. This brochure, from an eco synagogue point of view, it shows the computer-generated images that Kevin showed you earlier on. We'll be sending it out as a PDF to people, so you can look at it on your screens, because we're aware we don't want to send out 1,500 copies of a glossy brochure. Although we will be sending out some of them to people who are not on email and not used to using computers. And finally, I just wanted to say, because there was a lot of concern last night about how we will do things when we're only able to use half of the building. So when the Shul's being worked on, how will we continue to run services? How will we continue to run the nursery? When the hall's being used, how will it be refurbished? How will we continue to run the youth club and all of that sort of thing? There'll be a group dedicated to working out those details, so that we make sure, just as we did before, we will be running everything that is at all humanly possible, so that there's no lapses in any of the services that we provide. So having said all that stuff, let me hand over to the room first of all for questions. Danny.
Thank you very much. I've been a member here for 36 years. It's great to see Colin and Gary in the room. Colin, Gary and I grew up together in the 60s and 70s. And in that age, I think certainly around here, synagogues were perhaps understandably complacent, and the buildings that we put in, the Federation, also Beehive Lane, were actually cold and soulless places. And I think to reenact that style doesn't serve us in this day and age. So I think it's really exciting what Kevin's laid out, and it's really quite thrilling. I've only got a couple of points to make at this stage. One is a word of advice, if I may, and say this with all due respect, is that I was largely responsible for moving my firm, lock, stock and barrel, with 80 employees from one place another. And as I said to Kevin, I don't know if you're still on this link, but you have your greatest focus at the outset. My biggest mistake was I made compromises as we went through when budgets shifted, and I should have stuck to my guns. So I think at the outset, you've clearly got a well thought out, crystal clear vision, which a number of very talented and specialised people have thought about. Please keep that focus. Keep the core of your vision. So the only other thing I want to say, which it may seem like a small point, but and I know we're not getting into the fine detail of the layout. And I almost speak against myself when I say this, because over those 36 years, I've pretty much always sat in the same seat. My very strong preference, and of course we all have different preferences, my very strong preference is we do not have named seats for individuals. I had recently a very unpleasant experience when I sat in someone else's seat, not in this country, I have to say. We are such a warm and friendly shul, and I would hate to see a visitor or a guest or anybody at all sit in a seat where someone comes along and nicely or not so nicely turfs them out.
Thanks.
I think that we need, therefore, to have, I know the locker system is not ideal now, but I personally would like to see a system where everyone has a chance to deposit their books and their tubs and whatever it is in a place, and that the seats are first come, first served.
Okay. Thanks, Danny.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate those points and all you've done. You've done for sure.
Lindsay,
Before I hand over to Kevin,
Lindsay, is it okay if I answer those that point, Lindsay?
Lindsay,
Oh, all right, Kevin.
Lindsay,
Over to you.
No, someone else.
Steve Martin here. Lindsay, can you please repeat Danny's question? We couldn't hear it properly.
I will repeat the question when I'm answering it, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in essence, the first part was some advice, which Danny, thank you very much. I'm sure we will take on board. The actual question was to ask us to be very careful to not arrange things so that there are named seats for members. And as Danny rightly said, we're not in the detailed planning phase, and that won't be a decision that I'm making. Those kind of decisions will be made by the committee in as a democratic manner as we possibly can. The only thing I would say is don't sit in my seat.
Thanks, Kevin. I just wanted to add, I mean, the other thing you said was to stick to our principles and our original plan. And there are a number of us on the group who have had experience moving firms across offices. And I'm sure we've all come across that. And I'm sure that will be something that we do and pay complete attention to detail. And just to mention on the other thing about you're sitting in my seat, I won't give you my opinion exactly, but it doesn't seem like a very Chigwell and Hainault thing to do.
No, but it can, especially if all your books and your titles
Yeah.
that seat, then you get to it. It just causes.
I know.
I think at best unnecessary friction.
I totally agree with you. Any other questions from the room? Sorry, Graham at the back.
Yeah, can I just clarify? Rabbi, she did make mention of this. I believe there will be some sort of study room stroke, what I would term the library or whatever you want to call it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, it's that room over there. But then any of the other rooms, as they're not being used,
of course,
will be available for people to go into.
I think it's very important to have a dedicated space such
Yeah.
as that. The other thing was that we've mentioned youth, and it's extremely important. They are the future. What are we doing about, and I'm getting there now, the older members of the community? How will they be served in this new environment?
Okay, well, I mean, I think it's nice that Danny and Gary are here so they can hear this for the future.
Gary, not so much in the future.
Okay. Kevin, would you like to come back on this one? about the way we're going to relaunch all the other parts of the Shul?
I think the essence of this is that it gives all sections of the community the ability to run projects and programs as they wish. And so, although we have to focus, I guess, on the lifeblood of the community, which are the youngsters, the premises will be fully available and adaptable. For example, something that a lot of people of all ages like to attend, because we've in the past had hundreds of people attend, are the lecture programs. And we'll now be able to arrange those lecture programs so that when we do have the world-class speakers that we attract, and we do attract world-class speakers, they won't be stuck in really pretty terrible rooms with terrible Wi-Fi and non-existent audio-visual services. So I think that's just one kind of example. I mean, really, even if you look at how we've had to set up today by using an old projector screen at the back of the Shul, I mean, it's not exactly what I think the community aspires to.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, we did want to have this in the hall, but the Wi-Fi system in the hall is not up to it. So we've had to switch things around in the Shul. Thanks, Kevin. There's a question in the front here, sorry.
Yes, I want to know if we're going to preserve these lovely windows that was donated.
Okay, the question is, are we going to preserve the windows, the lovely windows that have been donated, not just the louvered windows, but all the ones at the side of the ark and all of those? Kev?
So my personal view, and it is only a personal view, and again, I think it will be the job of the steering committee to decide. My personal view is that the windows should be removed because they are not ecologically or security focused at all. However, they are part of the Chigwell and Hainault DNA, I think. They are beautiful. And I think what we should be doing is using them as a feature, backlighting them in light boxes and having them in a prominent position, for example, along the walls of the foyer. So I personally would hate to lose them. I think they should be a feature, but I do think we should look at where they're going to be.
Okay, I think if somebody, yeah.
Two things. First of all, will there be plans available for us? I'd like to see some detailed floor plans and what the building construction is going to be, so I can peruse it. All the details sounds to me have been done very, very well.
Thank you.
I don't think that's an issue. There might be issues with the building. I'd like to have a look at that one. So will there be plans available for us?
Kev, do you want to address
I'd like
that?
to have a copy, a copy plan.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we can make plans available. And if there are people with particular expertise that would like to chip in, I'd be more than happy to welcome advice. So please do contact us either via the Shul or through the new refurb email, and we'll hook up. But great to have advice. Thank you.
I'm very happy to make the introduction.
The other thing is, with regard to the windows, which the lady was saying here, and very interesting, but we had a very similar problem in Monster and Woodford, where we had all the lead glass windows at the top there, and as windows went, they were absolutely useless. So I redesigned a triple window system which went in there, which included 2 glasses against gunshot wound, everything, and it was fully triple glazed, and it's not very expensive to do it that way.
Okay,
so yes,
thank you. As Kevin said, we'd be grateful for any help and advice from professionals that we can get. Thank you. Gary.
So did I understand correctly that Kevin said that we will be starting the project in the spring? Did I understand that correctly, or?
Yes.
Kevin.
Okay, so without sounding negative, I want to put a negative spin. It would be an excellent evening, but let's say we haven't got the 1.2 million. That's start.
Okay, the first thing to say is the project starts in the spring, means the building starts in the spring, not the project starts in the spring, because there's a lot of work to do before we get to that stage. And as I just reiterate what Colin said, and Colin, you're welcome to come back on this. We have every confidence that we will raise the necessary money. As you've been told, we've already raised over half of the money, which was the target for our first phase, and there are still maybe another 30 or 40 people that we're planning to go and see. So we do have every confidence. Colin, do you want to add?
Yeah, so I mean, clearly with a project of this scale, there are a number of interdependencies, and we need to pay the bill of whatever the latest estimates are. Let's say still 1.2 million. So we need to raise that.
Can't hear you.
I apologise. I'm already shouting. Is that louder enough? Is it okay?
That's fine.
Yeah. So I was talking about the interdependencies on the project and the need to raise whatever it is, 1.2 million. We'll see what the latest estimates are from the quantity surveyor that Kevin mentioned earlier. But let's imagine it's the same number. So as Rabbi repeated, we're at just over 900,000 now. That still leaves us a big number to raise. And as I said last night, we've started each phase with a bit of a gulp, you know, to say we've got to do a big task here. But we start with confidence, and we are planning on the assumption we raise that money. We will, of course, adjust plans in line with the outcome of fundraising and other activities. So, for example, they might start digging trial holes outside and find some foundation problem that either sets us back or reduces costs. I don't know. But there will be contingencies along the way that we'll have to deal with. But at the moment, our working planning assumptions are that we want to start in the spring, because this project's been going quite a long time. And obviously, no one could plan for COVID. That's given us huge disruptions. But if we're going to do it, it feels like the time is right to do it now. And we've got a big task to raise the money. Unfortunately, that's landed on my shoulders, but with a huge amount of support from the community. And I believe we'll do it. But I'd be foolish to say we won't plan for other eventualities.
Colin, can I just disagree with you on one thing?
Of course.
You said,
anything.
you said, no, one particular, you said, unfortunately, it's landed on your shoulders.
Did I say that? That was
You did.
subliminal, sorry.
I think it's fortunately for us that it's landed on Colin's shoulders.
I hope so. Thank you.
Okay.
Will there be any closures of the Shul or schools?
As I say, the question is, will there be any closures of the Shul? As I said before, we're going to have a logistics group who will be working very hard to plan when the Shul is, as I said, when the Shul is being worked on, that we can still continue to run services. When the Shul's being worked on, the nursery will find a place for that to go and have their daily classes, and the youth club. We are planning not to have any closures. Obviously, again, I can't be absolutely certain that some things won't run, some things might have to be adjusted a little bit, but our plan is to keep going as close to 100% as we possibly can.
It's just Zoom.
Yeah.
Any questions?
So are there any questions on the chat, gentlemen?
Nothing at the moment.
Okay, has anybody out there in Zoom land got any questions for us?
Do we have any idea of how long the whole project will take?
Okay, so how long will the project take? Kev, do you want to address this?
I can give you a guesstimate, but it's purely a guesstimate. It's really going to be a function of the phasing that Lindsay has been talking about. We're going to be going out to tender soon with contractors, and they will also have their own ideas as to how best to phase the project. But clearly, it's a logical conclusion that phasing will do two things. It will slightly increase the cost, and it will lengthen the project. But I guess we're hoping 9 months to a year.
Is that what you mean, the building, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, because there's work going on now, as we said before, to prepare.
No, I'm to be clear, I'm talking about the physical construction process.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
So we've got a question, Paul Levy, if you want to take the stage.
Unmute and show your screen.
Thanks very much indeed. Yeah, great presentation, really well thought through. Well done to everybody involved in this. I'm coming at this sort of quite late because I'm a fairly new member myself. But ultimately, with the best laid plans in the world, building projects often overrun. They often go over budget. And I was just wondering about the contingencies that you may have from a budgetary perspective. If you're raising exactly 1.2 million, but actually there's an unforeseen cost and it runs over to 1.3 or 1.4 or more, what's the plan? How would that be covered?
So in with the 1.2, there is a contingency amount. Now, clearly, there are a couple of considerations that could make the price go up or down. Brexit, unfortunately, is one of those. So we are looking forward to receiving the next quantity survey report, which will be much more accurate. But that will also, when we come back to the community with a figure, that figure will include a contingency.
And welcome, Paul. Thank you. Nice to see you. Any other questions from anyone?
Lindsay?
Yes.
It's Martin Brownstein. If I understand it correctly, there's no intention to either increase Shul fees or to add a levy to Shul fees in order to fund this project, assuming there are no absolute disasters or catastrophes.
Thank you for bringing that up, Martin. That's why we wanted to make sure as we start that the project is fully funded, so there will be no burden on the members. I can't promise you there'll be no increases in fees, but our intention is that there'll be no increases in fees because of this project. As Kevin said, there are a number of shuls in the United Synagogue who have had very large projects going on and have not quite come up to scratch with the money. They've come a long way from raising the money, the sort of money that they need. And that's caused trouble and broiguses and disagreements within those shuls, and we were determined that we wouldn't do that. We don't like broiguses in Chigwell and Hainault, as you know, Martin. Please don't disagree with me. All right. Any other questions from out there? Okay. Thank you all very much. Rabbi, would you like to? Oh, sorry, one more question coming through.
Quickly, what involvement has to be or will there be with the local non-Jewish community, or is that not necessary?
Well, that's an interesting point, because I made it one of my aims at the time that Rabbi Rafi had his unfortunate attack, because the local community were absolutely fantastic for us. People left flowers, people phoned, people wrote letters. As people walked past the shul on a Shabbos morning, they always asked how Rabbi Rafi is. So I've personally made contact with the local residents group. We're going to be doing something with locally on Mitzvah Day, which is coming up soon, with one of the residential homes on the estate. And I'm discussing with the ladies who run the local community group for Limes Avenue, for Limes Farm, how we can work together and what we can do together to help each other, and so we can live beautifully and in harmony with each other. Anything else? Okay, just
only one other question.
Yes, go on.
Has any firm decision been made about the layout of the shuls, the seating? Because I prefer the sections.
Yeah, I think that was covered just before you
sections,
came.
as it was.
Kevin, do you want to just address that just once more, the
layout?
The layout.
So the plan is to perhaps actually I will just share one more time.
Yeah.
Sorry, just bear with me a second. So I'm just sharing again the computer generated image of the synagogue. And again, please bear in mind, this is not for detail. It's purely actually to show the layout concept, which is that the layout will be not as it was, ladies at the back, men at the front, but it'll be side by side, men and women side by side, obviously separated by the divider, the mechitza, and in roughly the same proportions as we had previously, 1/3 ladies and 2/3 men. So I hope that answers the question.
And bear in mind, the area that we'll have will be very similar, except that the stage where the ark is will be reduced in size. That'll make more space. And we will have a bimah, but it'll be placed in the middle of the shul. And it will be a smaller bimah than the very large one that we had before, again, giving a small space. So people who had previously complained about not being able to hear will be much closer to what's going on. Okay, thank you. Okay, if there aren't any more questions.
Hang on, one comment from Josh Sands. He said, we might move back from Hendon if you can pull this off.
Josh, you'd be very welcome. And while you're buying a house, you can come and stay with us. Is that all right, Olivia? Okay, let me hand you over to Rabbi Davis for some concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. So I'm sure you realize, ladies and gentlemen, an incredible amount of work has gone into making the project what it is up to this point in time. I can't remember how many years. I was looking back at emails a few days ago. I think the email started in about 2016. And things take time, and COVID didn't help. But now we are at a really exciting stage. I'd like to thank Kevin especially, who's done a huge amount of work in conjunction with others. I'd like to thank David Goldberg. And of course, there are others being involved, but primarily there are hours and hours and hours with this architect and that engineer and so on. So what about the things that were said this evening? How are we going to get there financially? What happens if? Are we going to stick to our goals? So it so happens, of course, you heard it here first, there's no such thing as coincidence, that very well-known Israeli journalist Sivan Rahav Meir posted today the following in connection with Jacob's dream that I spoke of earlier. And as we said before, it's a ladder. The bottom of the ladder is on the ground and the top is right up in heavens. And after he wakens through a dream, what does Jacob do the next morning? Of course, he makes a vow, a promise. If God looks after me, I'll do what I need to do. Then it says, Vayisa Yaakov Raglav. Jacob lifted up his feet and he went to the land of the east. What kind of expression is lifting up the feet? He went, what do you mean lifted up his feet? So Rashi explains, he was given good tidings. God's going to look after him. Gave him the courage, the enthusiasm, and off he went. When someone has a dream, the soul that has the dream affects the body that's going to carry it out. Jacob reminds us how important it is to live in accordance with a plan, a vision, and a mission. When we have a higher purpose, we are blessed with enormous powers to act, and the heart lifts the feet. And that is why it says, Jacob lifted his feet. What this has to do with this project, of course, everything to do with this. We have been so encouraged by the support that we've had over the last couple of months. This figure of 300,000, 314,000 to be precise, we've raised from all within the community.
Rabbi, can I just actually tell you that whilst we've been talking, one of our benefactors has been so excited by the project that they've just increased their donation.
Wow. Can I carry on talking then?
I'm sorry.
All night long.
I'm sorry.
No. It's very good. I'll carry on. Absolutely.
Sorry, Rabbi, the other thing you should know, it was you.
I'll take credit for some things. But this is, the truth is, what Kevin has just said, this is the enthusiasm that we have found. These 2 months, it's only 2 months. Bear in mind that within those 2 months, we had the Yom HaRoim, we had Sukkot, which is always challenging. But to have this campaign during this time, I have huge confidence in the community. And I have to tell you, if I didn't, I wouldn't be backing the project. People said to me a few weeks ago, "You're going, how can it be a project?" And I said, don't be ridiculous, because the community is far bigger than one person, even than one rabbi. It has a tremendous future. Now, how's it going to happen? Those that ask the questions here and on, because you're going to do it. You're going to motivate just not yourselves, but you're going to motivate your friends. Someone said this afternoon, I phoned also a potential benefactor this afternoon, said, I'm not quite sure how much I will give. He said, but one thing you could be assured of, I will be telling all my friends. Such an exciting project. So, ladies and gentlemen, over to you.
Colin, we've just had we need a reminder of the email address. What's the email address? I'm gonna chat it to everybody. So.
Yes, sure. So we will circulate both the slides and the PDF of the brochure. But the email address is refurb, REFURB @chigshul.org.uk. To save Sam being bombarded with her normal email address, we've set up a separate one. Any other points? Otherwise, we'll conclude the meeting.
Sorry, I'll send it to everyone in a minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's it for this evening. Thank you for your attendance and participation.
No, I've got to chat it because Paul was asking. Just if it